Before we get started on our study, though, the scripture says, you'll eat and be satisfied, and you'll bless Adonai your God for the good land he has given you. So let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied. We thank you for the land. In Yeshua's name we thank you. Amen. So this is Midrash on Torah portion Shoftim. So Midrash is a word means to study or to search, from the word darash, to study or search. So it's I do have slides here, but the conversation is not limited to what I have on the slide. So if you'd like to comment on anything that you learned while studying this week, or anything else for that matter, feel free to do so. Interactive. Thank you for the summation on that.
It doesn't matter because you're on your phone.
Guys have the talking stick. Okay. All right. So this is the Aliyot. Here was the first verse in Hebrew, and the first verse in Hebrew and in English on this next slide. So you will make judges and officers in your gates, which Adonai your God, your Elohim, gives you, according to your tribes, and they'll judge people with righteous judgment. So 3 times in this in this verse, a version of Shaphat is so. You see Shoftim for judges. You see Tishpat. You see Shaftu, excuse me, and you see Mishpat. Now, Mishpat is perhaps a bit different in that Mishpat. Let me go back a slide. Mishpat is, for looking at in the transliteration, it is, if you're looking on the slide, it's for Mishpat, it's the the third line down. Excuse me. The last word on the left is Mishpat, and it, as you can perhaps see, it just has a mem in front of Shaphat, and the mem in front of Shaphat brings it to being essentially to judge you. Mishpat, of course, is a type of mitzvot. Mishpatim are types of mitzvot that are essentially the ones that are obvious, that don't need a further explanation. Things like do not murder, that'd be the type of mitzvah called a mishpat, which is a type of judgment. So we read also the Haftorah, and as we mentioned, the Haftorah typically, if you look in most Jewish sources, would show the ending of this Torah portion, or the Haftorah, as with 52:12, but that would that would leave Isaiah 53 out of the reading cycle. And so the Messianic addition, so to speak, is to add Isaiah 53. It's such a powerful Messianic passage.
Must be why they left it out.
There's thoughts on that. I don't know if there's anything confirmed about that, but it seems like it would probably have been in this Torah portion originally. So we also read from the Gospel of John, chapter 14. And so the first question, I'm not sure if the question you've been waiting for or not, but the first question is, according to the traditional count of Rambam, there are X number of mitzvot or commandments within this Torah portion. C.
We haven't got to A, B, and C yet.
Well, here's the A, B's, and C's. 27, 37, 41, or 47. So, who votes for A? Raise your hand. Who votes for B? Raise your hand. Who votes for C? Raise your hand.
Well, I can't vote for C because he did.
I took it
That's why I
back.
went for B.
I took it back and went to B.
I went to B.
But I'd be first.
Who votes for D 47? Nobody. Oh, what? There's one vote. Okay.
I have a feeling we're about to find out.
All right. So, who's wrong first? Sorry for 27.
Oh.
But also sorry for 47. So between 37 and 41. And it is, in fact, 41.
Oh, man.
There's a double blind.
Hey, can I ask one question?
Sure.
So, in the Brit House show, and you'll be on there.
Mhm, yeah.
Why did you stop at 20? Because if you went to 21, to me, it kind of went with it, you know. If you love me, keep my
Wasn't his
commandments.
choice,
kinda deal.
he had somebody.
I-
some other-
I used
said-
I know that.
FFOZ's listing of reading. Could start from the verse part of that too, because it had the question that Philip answered or requested.
True. But who's talking?
They're talking, he was asking, his question wasn't about Devarim 16, 18, or any of these. It was about why the reading portion was chosen for the Ketuvim Netzarim portion, the Besorah.
Because that comes from the Messianic side. So I wondered, why did they stop at 20 and didn't go all the way down to 21, which reads, "He who has my commandments and keeps them, it is he who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him."
Perhaps they use that in a different reading because they read through the entire gospel in their reading cycle.
Yeah, sometimes I don't like the way they break things.
That's where it's designing it sometimes. And how they break it.
Could be, but I don't see how sometimes.
What probably determined how they split it up was simply mathematics. You know, you have to portion so many pieces for 365 days. So you can't take too much.
Did you see a pattern of
each
that
one.
one? That they broke it up according to a mathematical formula or something?
Why would that
Not really.
be an equation in there? Because
Because you had to have a relatively average sized piece for every study.
who says so?
Well, anybody with a sense of proportion and
So
just
that
a
leaves all
feeling
of us
and
out.
educated sensibility.
Yeah, I definitely leave us out.
Me out for sure. You lost me on the first one. Okay.
All right.
Fine.
So
Sorry.
these three mitzvot on the slide: appoint judges and officers of the court, do not plant trees in the temple courtyard, do not erect a pillar in a place of worship. I think that you probably have to have a Torah government in place with to have this. Certainly, the latter two are. You have to have in order to not plant trees in the temple courtyard, as this rendered here. You have to have a temple courtyard to plant them in.
And someone to enforce that like a priesthood.
Right, the functioning priesthood. So I think even with the judges and officers of the court, because in addition to the judges and officers, you bring the case to the high priest who's also serving at that time.
Is this the beginning of the Sanhedrin?
Well, this is essentially it is the formula for having a Sanhedrin.
Okay, so I got another question. So this was given on the other side of the Jordan. Before they went into the land.
Right?
So let's just back that up a little bit when they were given the Torah at Mount Sinai. Okay? Did the Levites had their own camp?
I mean, section.
Well, I think
They camped around the tabernacle.
Because they were around the tabernacle.
So no one could get.
They're the tabernacle guards.
Yes. So where I'm going with that is because in this portion, I don't know if you're going to get to that or not. You have Levites assigned to cities and areas.
Well, it assigns the cities of safety, so to speak.
True, but you have Levites there. So
There are Levites in every large city that they.
Yeah, that's different than the camp.
Not really related to the.
Where I'm linking this up is, I wonder if they ever talked about it, where depending on where the Levites camped, north, south, east, or west, whatever, did they follow those particular tribes when they went into the land?
You know, I have a book on, it's amazing, it's called Rose something, it's from years ago, but they have the pictures and they show the actual wholly owned, it's a huge, I'll bring it. And it shows all the camps, which I literally can see what you're saying because I have the pictures.
Is this while they were in the desert?
And then everything, yeah, and it's like cool, and then it's got the Holy Holies, the shewbread, the tabernacle, and it folds out like this, you can see the whole camp, how it was placed, how the Levites, the east, the west, it's to the T. Even the colors, the pomegranates, and it tells you what section of the Bible, it's done.
Interesting to see.
I'll bring it.
We've seen graphs. and
I
stuff.
cannot believe, the book is this big, and it folds, and then it shows you and I'm like, wow, and it was given to me in California, when she moved. And I was like, wow, okay, Lord. I'm gonna bring it. I'll bring it next week. It's amazing. It's got other things. It's got when the Torah first started to now how our Bibles are. It's so amazing. There are things I don't even understand yet. I'll bring the
We're
book.
talking about, Moshe was talking about when we come into the land
Mhm.
and where the Levites were supposed
So it didn't necessarily apply to while they
It
were in
was-
the desert.
to, it has to do with every city of every tribe.
Mhm.
The Levites were supposed to position themselves there, but they didn't have to pay for that burial
Right,
or anything like that.
right. I was just wondering,
But it's in the cities.
right, but could it have been possible the Levites that were on the east side coincide with the cities that were with the tribes of the east side?
Possibly. At some point in time, most of the Levites came back. Remember when the kingdom split to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom wanted to worship, choose different feast days and such, and do sacrifices on high hills.
They didn't want people going to Jerusalem.
They did not want people going to Jerusalem, where the Levites were supposed to go. That's how the divisions, the 24 priestly courses.
Well, the point is, I can understand them leaving.
But at that point they mostly left the northern kingdom. In my understanding, most of the Levite came back.
Yeah.
And this has maps too. It has maps. You'll get to see a lot. It has maps.
So, 'cause-
It only makes sense. You would want Levites close to almost everywhere.
Right.
Because you need them for certain functions.
Right. Certainly, the one that comes to mind clearly is death, right? If you're in contact with a dead body, you have to have cleansing, and so that's where the Levites there would have the ashes of the red heifer to do that.
Or to have them inspect the house to see if it's infected.
Yeah, the leprosy side. Yep, absolutely.
So you couldn't send 1,000 miles away for the priest. There had to be one station close.
That makes sense. Yeah, because they had to go to the priest so they could declare unclean or clean.
Yeah.
With the leprosy. That's amazing.
So these next three, of course, require you to have a functioning priesthood, a functioning altar. As part of, it's really part of, it's built into the mitzvah to have that. So these can't be done right now. Cohens and Levites and judges are not really Torah appointed or in office presently. The king which you appoint must be chosen by the Almighty. Don't appoint a foreigner, a nokri, over Israel. The king shall not multiply horses or women. That's on the next slide.
Solomon didn't adhere to that.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
According to tradition, according to tradition, when he was writing his copy of the Torah, he distracted the priest that was helping him do it,
Hey, look over there.
and leave out the word not.
Yeah.
And therefore, in his copy of the Torah he's reading every day, it says, "You shall multiply horses and gold and
When
wives."
did that work out?
On the, on 1715, don't want a foreigner over Israel.
They did that.
Not a question, maybe, I guess more an observation. With the one that says don't appoint a foreigner over you as king, and the other one that says choose judges and officers. These things seem to be standard ideas of good government today that were not very common long time ago. You seem to be the idea of a nation state, being its own. I guess it's funny to me because people are very not proud. We have such a much more fair system of government today than people did thousands of years ago, and these are some of the bedrock principles that a nation, not only chooses its own head, but that the nation, it must be of the nation, and that the nation, there's like a distribution of power. These bedrocks seem to already be in place.
That's why there is on the Supreme Court building, there is a supposed image of Moses.
Oh no, yeah, I've seen it.
Because ours is, however, loosely based on that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's very loose. I think it's pretty.
It's pretty tight, but there are some exceptions.
Well, no, I'm saying these ideas were not common back then. There was all the time foreign kings, with not even through conquering. It's just this is
Herod.
pretty
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah, but they
new
didn't
for
choose
ancient people. This is pretty radical of an idea to these ideal principles of government that man kind of discovered in philosophy thousands of years later.
This is Shimon Peres said if you didn't have these, if you don't use these or didn't have these, if they didn't have them, you're out of business.
See, in school, they taught ours is patterned after the Greeks.
Well, if you look at the Greek government, it looks an awful lot like this. A lot of these ideas.
But so did this, it sounded like. Dividing
No.
up the government.
Well, yeah.
The judges over so many, and
Yeah.
and the appeals to higher courts.
Yeah. Well, the Greeks got it from the creators. Just saying. They couldn't think of that on their own. Back then.
Not multiplying wives, gold and silver, and the king shall write a separate Torah for himself, a Sefer Torah scroll for himself. That is in part leads to, the Hebrew title of this book is called Devarim, words, but Deuteronomy means what? Second Torah. And so you could argue that the king having to write the Torah for himself would be the second Torah. We've already talked a little bit about this. The Levite can't own, his job is not to be a farmer or a rancher. It is, he doesn't own a share of the land.
It does on kings.
Well, there's given land outside of the town. That is correct, but it's not the same as
It's a community land for the priest.
He doesn't get a state basically in the
Right.
country. He does not receive a state or a county.
But the way it's worded in a lot of houses, they're giving them, the Levites are given these cities,
Yes.
which when you hear that in your mind, would also take the ground also.
But they live on tithes and offerings.
So again,
Tithes and offerings, they live on tithes and offerings, like the first fruits and all the offerings.
yeah, they weren't supposed to, they weren't given towns like
Right.
Judah was,
Right.
or territories.
It's divided for by God, okay, the tithes
Right.
and offerings.
They are God's possession.
Because that Levi is priests, so they were given tithes, everybody's tithes and offerings were given to the priests. They were not, no possessions, really.
So what was given to the Levites, or the Kohanim rather, in 18:3, the Torah of the Teruma Gedolah. So if you read 18:14, Torah, of course, means instruction, not law. You will also give him the first fruits of your grain, new wine, the olive oil, and the fleece of your sheep.
That's what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
You were just talking about that.
I was listening to what else you were saying. What was you saying about the Torah? What was it called?
Teruma Gedolah, essentially the great offering.
I don't know, I said it, and heard that part. Thank you so much. But I want to know that too, right in a minute.
When a Levite moves to the place chosen by the Almighty, originally was, well, for a long time it was Shiloh, not always Jerusalem. He was to minister and eat as an equal with the Levites already there. And that's derived from the passage from 18:6 through 8, maybe just through 8. So it kind of is showing that it's they're essentially as one body. So the
When you said Shiloh, is that mean minister?
typically it was understood to be peace.
Yeah, because I know when Shiloh comes, that's Jesus, which he's already came. That was the first coming with the donkey, and
Right.
so when you said, I wanted to hear that too. Yeah, I know peace means Jesus too, Shalom. But I wanted to
Well,
hear
Shalom,
Shalom, yeah.
or peace,
Shalom, Shalom.
Prince of
Prince of Peace, Sar Shalom. Prince of Peace is Sar Shalom.
Right.
That's teaching me. Oh, glory to God. I'm taking notes. I'm excited.
The next several of them are about the occult. Do not practice kasim, divination, occult. I will note that the name of a rocket type that Hamas typically, unguided rockets that are fired, were called Qassam, kind of related to this word. Kashaf, don't do kashaf or sorcery. Don't practice the art of being a spellcaster. Chaber. Don't inquire of a sha'al ov, a medium or an asker of familiar spirit. So what example? Where in the scriptures? Saul, Shaul.
Saul.
Right.
Which of Endor?
Samuel.
Yeah.
Do not inquire of a Yidoni,
Call him up. Which he
a
wasn't supposed to.
wizard.
I think it shocked her too.
Yeah, because he wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Don't seek information from a Darash Mut. Darash, of course, is from to seek out. Mut, of course, is for dead. So necromancer.
Ouija board,
That's evil stuff.
we're seeking answers that we do.
Right.
Heed the prophet like Moshe. 1815. Do not falsely prophesy in the name of Yah. Do not prophesy in the name of idols. Do not fear a false prophet. You could say this could have been derived from last week's portion as well, from Devarim 13.
Yeah.
Cities of refuge from 19:2 and 3. Do not show pity for one who kills another person or injures him. Do not move your markers.
Okay, shouldn't that be murder?
That makes sense, yes.
So let's look at 19:13.
That makes sense.
The leader of his own town, or send him and bring him back from there and hand him over to the next of kin avenger to be put to death. You are not to pity him, rather you must put an end to shedding of innocent blood in Israel. Then things will go well with you. So yeah, you can say that is, because in verse 11 it says if someone hates his fellow member of the community, lies in wait and attacks him, strikes him a death blow. The word murder doesn't appear in the text directly, but I think murder would be a good analysis of that.
Because somebody who accidentally kills somebody not meaning to.
That's different.
Yeah, that would be
It's
manslaughter.
different than
What are
what
the
we read
different Hebrew
about the
words
acts
that differentiate between murder, manslaughter, and just death?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because God gave them coverage when they accident, but then when they didn't, no coverage.
Yeah.
Which is a blessing.
today. The example he gave with the accident.
Yes, we're just reading, yes. That's accidental, that's different.
But he still had to go through the process.
He had to go through a process, which is awesome. I love the way God gives the justice.
Yeah, person was missing in this listing here should say intentionally kills another person.
That's good. Intentional, yeah, because you premeditate on it and you're gonna do it.
Planning, making an
God doesn't
ambush.
honor
Yeah.
that. Thou shalt not kill.
That kind of
Commandments.
adds an extra level of evil in spirit.
Do not move your neighbor's landmark. Do not make a ruling based on testimony of only one witness. It's not just about death penalty offenses here. If we read in 1915,
we were all going through COVID, they were changing a lot of landmarks. I kept seeing on TV in California, they were just erecting and throwing things out and cutting off heads of big art, like, landmarks that we have all over the world. And I was like, oh no. Because I do remember, that's what I would see. That's a landmark stating for our freedom of America.
But that's a landmark to mark a memory,
Okay.
not property.
Right. This
Well, okay,
those
Yeah,
are
for
boundary
sure.
boundary
if I
markers.
extrapolate it out, the landmarks they were destroying set the boundaries for how far authority can go. In other words,
Well-
there's a principle involved in these things. Usually
Yeah, I agree,
monuments
but I
like this
think
tell you
mainly
how
the
far and how
thought
far.
was here was because if you take your neighbor's boundaries and move them, you're doing it to decrease his property and increase yours.
But still, if you take a freedom landmark,
Mm.
our flag,
Yeah.
and you start destroying it, which we're not supposed to,
Yep, wouldn't it be more,
then what
I know I'm
happens?
picking stuff,
it
but
starts
wouldn't it
getting
be more correct to call it not a freedom landmark, but a freedom
Symbol?
symbol?
symbol, okay, but
Because it
okay,
doesn't mark a piece of
okay,
land.
well, then I'll go back to, okay, Mount Rushmore. Let's just wipe out all the presidents. Let's go someday and take a machete, just, and take their armpits off.
Mhm.
What would that do to us? That would defringe our freedom. Because those are our forefathers for
Not
America.
just that, your identity as an American.
You get what
would
I'm
be-
saying?
Yeah.
You're demoralizing America. So let's just chop their heads off and say, we don't want them up there no more. Every one of them are gone.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but
It's infringing
what I'm
our
saying is in this biblical case right here.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm wondering if that's what God meant even for, I mean, because we are united with America. We got
You mean
that-
like the larger context?
The
maybe?
larger context, just because America and Israel won right now, anyway. They kind of starting to each other. But what I'm trying to say and get at is, we got our freedom because we adopted them. We love the Jews, and what I'm saying, and like Kufi, Christian Unified for Israel. And we're the ones that usually was giving love to them and what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I understand,
So
I agree with what you're
thinking
saying,
maybe that's kind of a
but
landmark
this
for
is
them.
instructions on when you're going into the land.
Right, which we need to, number one, Israel. But then I'm just thinking that whole picture, like the bigger, like you're saying, because it differentiates freedom, and where does freedom come from? God calls the ministers, I couldn't believe this when I saw this in the Bible. When you see an officer, he's a minister of God, a peace officer. And God talks about, Apostle Paul, I believe, taps on that. And he said, so they're ministers of God. So when we see officers running around, they're ministers of God. He put them in place so we don't have murders. And I'm like, Jesus, this is amazing. So that's still not Israel. That's all over the world.
Yeah,
But so I'm kind of grabbing onto that with the landmark.
yeah,
You
on
know,
a broader
that's-
picture, I understand.
A
but
broader picture.
If it's just this
Right,
scripture we're
right.
talking
Right.
about,
But ripples.
they're meaning really land.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
here in Oklahoma, land ownership, you move your fence just a few more feet, you get a little more pasture. It's very
Yeah.
important. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, yeah.
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 It's very important.
That's on the list of don't do's.
Yes.
Yeah, do not do that.
1919, punish a false witness as he had plotted to do to the accused. Very interesting. It says, you are to do to him what he intended to do to his brother.
So you have to have the judgment mechanism in place to do that. You
Yeah.
can't just go out and do it, unless it's murder, correct? Because you did have the avengers of blood.
Well, what it says is the judges are, verse 18, are to investigate carefully. If they find that the witness is lying and has given a false testimony against his brother, then you are to do to him what he intended to do to you. So in other words,
There's a mechanism in place to judge.
yeah, you have to have the again, with the idea of a Torah government in place. The judge has to be in place to do that. And it would be the ruling would be something like, okay, if you give a false testimony that, Joe murdered Sally, and it was turned out to be false, what would happen to Joe if it was true?
He'd get murdered.
No, well, I
He
mean,
would-
yeah.
He would be killed.
he would be
wouldn't be protected from the avengers.
right. And so that would happen to the false witness as a result of that.
It's Haman.
Like justice.
yeah.
It's,
Haman.
That's exactly what happened to Haman, right?
Haman fell in his own gallows, thank God. I had no mercy for that.
A Cohen shall speak with, encourage the soldiers before a battle during time of war. We see Pinchas performing that duty in the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
The war priest, the priest for war. Don't be frightened by the enemy in time of war. And the Torah of the non-obligatory war. So if the passage is 20:10 through 15, which reads this way. It says, when you advance on a town to attack it, first offer it terms for peace. If it accepts the terms for peace and opens its gates to you, then all the people there are to be put to forced labor and work for you. However, if they refuse to make peace with you but prefer to make war against you, you're put it under siege. When Adonai, your God, hands it over to you, you are to put every male to the sword. However, you are to take as booty for yourself the women, the little ones, the livestock, and everything in the city, all its spoil. Yes, you will feed on your enemy's spoil, which Adonai your God has given you. This is what you are to do to all the towns which are at a great distance from you, which are not the towns of these nations.
What was that, 20 verses?
10 through 15.
There are slightly different rules for towns and or places you conquer that are right next to you. And places that are further away from you fall under different.
Right. The following verse, ask the towns of these peoples, which Adonai your God is giving you as your inheritance. Which is
that
different.
would be your towns.
Yes. Right.
But other countries that you're not going to take over, but you still got to go battle, they treat it just.
Yeah. The treatment is to be humane, essentially, if they surrender. Anyone, the 7 Canaanite tribes remain alive. That's what it lists them off. The Hittite, the Amori, the Canaanite, the Hivi, and the Yebusi. Now, one of the interesting things that some scholars have noted is that, first of all, you see these tribes again, some of these tribes again later, that they were not all put to the sword. And that there's been some studies of the terminology used, the essentially Near Eastern terminology for statements. This may be not directly what was meant. In other words,
That, if you will.
seeing
A long article I was talking about in the Institute of Education Research, like things. The Near Eastern
Yeah.
terminology and talking about various plans.
there's been a apologetics sort of study, because this is often used as a see, this is, how brutal, how primitive how savage your God is.
Actually, I remember in Hebrews for Christians, and Saul did not obey God and God's command. Get rid of it. He let some people slide. And then God told me later on, they came back later on, I think it was Haman or someone with panic,
Mhm.
because none of them were all destroyed, like he was told. So he said, oh, I think it was Samuel. Oh, you did not obey God. I think one of them that way. And that one lineage line later on arose later, and we got Queen Esther. And I was like, oh, and that panic, I think it's called panic, but anyway,
Amalek.
that's it. And I was like, oh my goodness, in Bobby, and he also erected a Moloch idol, and he some of his children. And I was like, wow, Lord, that's what else is going to do.
Eventually, Israel will be led astray.
Yes,
And what happens when Israel gets led astray is they fall into sin and get thrown out of the land. So essentially, if they let them live, what are they going to do? They're going to allow Israel to be kicked out of the land because Israel will not be able to withstand the temptation of following after their false gods.
Yes, that's what not to do. Deuteronomy 28. I will bless you if you do this, and then all the curses do that. Straight 28. Deuteronomy. I mean, when I read that, I do like, okay, well, because that's still today. That has not changed. It's
Wasn't that
today
same
forever.
thing with Balaam and Balak
Yes.
incident?
Same.
They couldn't conquer Israel, so they made Israel conquer themselves.
Yes, yes,
That's exactly the teaching of Balaam.
Yeah.
yes.
So I think the question in my mind is there, it's unthinkable to think of a ethical or moral killing of children, but is it possible that that's true? I mean, is it even, you can't even think that. You can't believe that, but
It
is
is
there
true.
somewhere in your mind that,
It's true because you know what God showed me? I just was like, wow, Lord. He showed me he showed me Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot. And it says both the young and the old. And they were sodomites. And it didn't just say the old. God specifically said the young and the old. And I said, God. And he was like, because these are children that have that spirit, that demonic sodomite spirit. They're not God. They're children of wrath.
But I would be careful to say that
They're children of wrath. They're not children.
it's hard to accept that with our culture, but
It's true.
still,
Yeah.
I would only do it if God
If
said
God said it, right. But
not some prophet.
No.
Or anybody
And you gotta think, Paul, God showed me another children. He showed me with, was it Paul? No, it wasn't Paul. I don't remember, I think it's Paul. I don't remember. Yeah, Elisha. After Elisha got the mantle of Elijah, these children came up and said, you baldy, you baldy, you baldy. He cursed them. There was that's amazing. And he cursed them and they died. He cursed them and the children died. He was about to keep the children of Satan. And same with Sodom and Gomorrah, the children of Satan, they all died. But remember, it was all burned up. So God took them out, but again, it has to be God. It can't be you, I'm gonna go do this and have to, no. It has to be God. And God will show you. Look at Sodom and Gomorrah. He got Lot out, and his children, the wife looked back, she's a pillar of salt, and look what happened to Sodom. Killed them all. Fire. I say, God, thank you. You show us. God teaches us and shows us with the Holy Spirit.
I got one.
Well, the computer's kind of going nuts here, and it's not for online. It's about getting knocked off of line, and the slides are kind of going nuts. It wouldn't turn the right slides. It was kind of funny. Go back up to the last one. This one is to not destroy fruit trees in time of siege. What kind of trees can you use for siege? Non-fruit bearing, right? Because at some point you're going to want to eat those trees, right?
You got to offer future food source.
Yeah, food. That's these are plenty. You don't want browning.
So do not plow or sow the valley where the decapitated calf, the Eglah Arufa, was performed. The Torah of the Eglah Arufa is from 21:4, which says, the leaders of that town are to bring the heifer down to a wadi with a stream in it that never dries up, to a place that is neither plowed nor sown, and they break the cow's neck there in the wadi.
Is that only over a season?
Well, it's strange with the wording there. I don't hear in there, do not plow or sow. It just says, take the calf to a place that is not thin.
What's that? What do you do all that because of? because of a man found dead,
Yeah.
and you don't know who killed him. You don't know what city around him is responsible.
Very good. Very good.
Well, that's not what I was going for.
But that's what it was about.
Yeah, I know that's what it was about. It says, which it is not tilled or sown.
Mm-hmm.
And here it says, do not plow or sow.
I'm not too sure.
So it's either, I think it's trying to say that if you go to a valley that you're gonna do this in, it cannot have been sown or plowed in.
Virgin land.
Yes. But does that mean you can never use it?
Well, it's a place that is neither plowed nor sown.
Yeah, but that's just for that incident. If there's another incident 5 years later, and in that 5 years, that place has been planted after the fact,
Yeah.
they don't say you can't do it after the fact.
Yeah, right. The way he's got it written up there, do not plow or sow the valley where was before.
Yeah,
It
that's,
shouldn't-
I don't think that's right.
Well, it's a place that's neither plowed nor sown.
No, it says it's neither plowed nor sown currently.
That's when you're.
I don't see the word currently in the text, though. See, that's the thing.
Well,
It's a statement of the status of the land is a place where it's neither plowed nor sown. Now, you can read into it and say, well, it was not plowed nor sown. Then you can plow or sow
when I read it,
after
that's
that.
Well, I think both
I don't
ways is
think
reasonable.
do not plow or sow. I mean, I wouldn't do that right after it, but I'm just saying it doesn't say do not plow or sow. It says which is not tilled or sown.
Well, right, but it's saying that you, Israel, are not to do what? Plow or till that land.
So you can go to a field that's already plowed and sown.
No.
And kill them.
What?
You can take the
You can go to a place
take a
to
to a field that's already plowed and sown and do this. I'm just saying it's the wording.
I don't think that's true because it says do it at a place there's never been plowed nor sown.
Yeah, but
For that instance. But then what about 10 years later? And in that 10 years, it's been plowed and sowed.
But why would it be plowed or sown if it's a place that's neither plowed nor sown?
Because it hadn't been up to that point.
exactly. But can you do it afterwards?
It doesn't say one way or the other, but it seems to me the status is it's a place of land that's neither plowed nor sown.
Exactly. What I'm asking is, 7 years down the road, can I now plow and sow
Is
my
that
field?
place now banned forever?
Right, there you
Exactly.
go.
Is it banned forever?
Because that could happen to a lot of places out there.
It could. And there can be places that might be that way.
Then you ain't,
You ain't gonna grow nothing.
you can't grow up.
Stop killing,
Ever.
stop shedding innocent blood in the land. This doesn't happen.
Wow.
That's not gonna
No,
happen.
yeah, right.
That's the purpose of the commandment is make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you're saying it can't happen?
Right.
You're saying it can't be fulfilled?
It doesn't say the people of the town were guilty. In fact, it never establishes the guilt with that process.
This process says, hey, we are not.
It's
guilty.
just to say, yeah, we pledge to God Almighty that we aren't the ones who did it.
Well, this is the whole purpose of this thing is to do what? Verse 9, thus you will banish the shedding of innocent blood from among you by doing what Adonai sees as right.
Exactly.
Did
But
it,
what,
did it banish them? Did it banish that?
so what I'm asking is in a Shemitah year, could you now plow or sow if it had nothing else?
In a Shemitah year, you will neither plow nor sow.
Yeah,
But it's the year after
and
Shemitah.
then everything's
That's
good.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it starts all new. That's a good
That's why I
question.
brought up 7 years. After the Shemitah.
I like it.
Can you, if you've not had that reoccurring, can you?
That's
That's
I don't-
all I'm asking.
because then it's canceled out and you can't start again. Yeah, maybe so. That's good. Jubilee.
That's-
Well, Jubilee is different than the Shemitah, though, right? Jubilee is the
Oh, well, that's
50th
true.
year.
70 or not the 50, excuse me. It's the 77.
Are you saying that it looks like from the text, there's an intent, if maybe not a direct implication, there is definitely the intent that this is wild land? There's something important here about
That's
it
hallowed
being
land from
wild.
now on. Can't.
Well, it started with, it was neither plowed nor sown
Mhm.
at the point of this doing.
Yes.
And it seems to me that it would not. It'd be more like a remembrance,
True.
and that you're not plowing this land because you don't want to shed innocent blood in the
Of course,
land.
you can make that the place where it always happens. You can make that the valley of the Eglah.
Yeah, it could be because it doesn't say you can't do a second one there. If you don't learn your lesson the first time,
I mean, I get that. I'm just wondering by the text. But then
At
again,
that point, if there was a valley that wasn't under active cultivation, like it was virgin land, there was probably hardly any of those, even by that time. There was probably reasons why no one was tilling it. In other words, if it's virgin
It might
land
not
at
be
that
tillable,
point, after having been
might be
settled for
not
so
be
long,
arable
there's
sort of
a
land.
reason why that it's
Desert.
virgin land at that point. So it's a carried assumption. That
But
it
it's
goes
local
wild.
in the sense, right? It's the local is a murder victim is found lying in the countryside. So in other words, it's a place that's no one really owns, uses. It's somewhere in.
It carries its own implication inside the state.
I just want to see.
Okay.
Moses still apparently is like that.
He'll say, talk to the 50, talk to the 70 elders.
I'm not gonna do it.
Okay, so this was the first verse. The next, I want to show different translations read differently for this passage, but it's in verse 20. The Hebrew says, Tzedek, Tzedek.
19th
16, 19, and 20. First, back to start again. 16:20 says, yeah, it's the Hebrew doesn't have a way to underline or to put an exclamation point. It uses doubling the word or repeating the word puts an underline in it. I put underline under tzedek, tzedek in the English text, but you don't really have that.
Emphasizes is it doubles the word?
Yes. And that's why a lot of translations read something like justice, justice only, or justice, justice alone, you shall pursue. Because instead of just saying justice, justice, which is literal, it's tending to try and tell you something more than just justice, justice. It's doubling it for emphasis.
Yeah.
Putting a red line around it.
And it's God confirming it. It's God confirming it because I want to show you this too. God showed me this with Elijah and Elisha. He got a double portion. He asked God, he said, it's too hard for this. And then God showed me, God confirmed it because it was double. He got the double anointing of Elijah. So God confirmed it, and it's a confirmation. Because someone will say something to you, and then all of a sudden someone else comes up and says the same exact thing, and you're like, there's no way. God just confirmed it. He did it with Elijah and Elisha.
So in the conservative,
That's Chaim commentary.
yes, the term pursue carries strong connotations of effort, eagerness. This implies more than merely respecting or following justice. We must
Chase that.
actively pursue it. The command also means to pursue justice justly. For just goals can never be achieved by unjust means. The worthiness of goals will be rendered less worthy if we have to compromise justice to achieve it. Inspired by this verse, the Torah's vision of just society, and by history of living as a mistreated minority, Jews repeatedly have been in the forefront of struggles for social justice. Either way,
Hey, it's not just follow justice,
Right.
do justice, it's chase after
Yes,
justice.
that's awesome.
yeah, the reform doesn't have anything.
So Art Scroll translates this as righteousness, righteousness,
Right,
because
They do it what now? As what?
righteousness.
exactly, it's righteousness, yeah. Because Jehovah Tzedek is the Lord my righteousness.
Tzedek it can be translated either as justice or righteousness. Both are right.
I guess the word to focus to me on is not the righteousness, it's how you approach that righteousness. You chase it. You
Yes.
just
You
chase
pursue it.
after
Yeah.
You pursue it. Yeah. You must pursue. The Targum Targum is a Aramaic word. It means translation, but it really means translation with commentary and practice. The Targum for this portion, Targum, no, it's Onklos. It translates to honesty, honesty, truth, truth. So the righteous will judge justly. So the implication is if Israel's judges do not judge justly, they will not live and inherit the land and be able to stay on the land that was promised. So the work of righteousness, which is a related word, Zedekah, shall be peace, and the service of righteousness, Zedekah, be rest and safety forever. So if you look at these related words, Tzedek and Zedekah, the result, again, going back to what the result of following this is rest and safety forever. And so that means safety and security in the land. Let's move forward to the prophet like Moshe. Finally! So, Adonai your God will raise for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brothers. To him you must listen. This is just what you ask of Adonai, your God, in Horeb on the day of the assembly, when saying, I cannot continue to hear the voice of Adonai my God, or see the great fire anymore, or I will die. So just a commentary there, down the bottom, from the Septuagint Greek translation, the word there for the day of the assembly is, of course, ecclesia. The day of the assembly. Correct. Continue reading.
Masoretic text doesn't use that.
Well, it has assembly. It's kahal. No, it isn't.
Really?
That's what it's trying to say. Kahal translates to ecclesia. Kahal means assembly. Say again? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Sure. Kahal means assembly, but it's the term that Israel is called the kahal. The congregation is how kahal is typically translated. Adonai said to me, they have done well in what they have spoken. I will raise up a prophet like you, Moshe, for them, Israel, from among their brothers. I will put my words in his mouth. He will speak to them all that I command him. Now, whoever does not listen to my words, that this prophet speaks in my name, I myself will call him to account. So, as you might remember from your readings of the Nazarene writings, the New Covenant writings, in Acts 3, Peter identifies Yeshua as the prophet like Moshe. In Acts 7, your second witness there, Stephen identifies Yeshua as the prophet like Moshe. And so you're supposed to listen to him. As Yeshua keeps saying all the time in the Gospels, my words are not my own. Right. And so that's exactly what the prophet like Moshe would do. So when the priests and the Levites questioned Yochanan the Immerser, John the Dunker, a.k.a. John the Baptist, they asked him if he was the prophet.
But he didn't dunk you, you dunked yourself.
He said no. He said no, he was not the prophet.
Exactly.
There are other claims to being the prophet like Moshe. You probably recognize that Muslims believe that Muhammad was this prophet.
You know what's really cool about that?
Yeah.
I'll show you on Friday. They cannot make that claim, even though they make that claim, Muhammad, because he's not the brethren. He's not a Jew.
Right.
He's an Ishmael. And I was like, ooh, Dad, go Jesus. Oh, yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. So Did Muhammad really come from among the midst of the Israelites who left Egypt?
Nope,
Is Muhammad a brother Israelite?
nope.
I think no.
Ishmael. That's very cheesy.
I don't know. I said the prophet like Moshe is basically in response to the request when Moshe was given to Moshe to not hear the voice of Adonai again because it was making everything shake. The wilderness, stripping forests bare, breaking the cedars of Lebanon, causing deer to give birth. Shua Tov, Paul.
I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
Just gotta step outside.
Okay. So here's the question. Here's kind of the question is this. If Yeshua is the prophet like Moses, if he came to speak exactly the words given to him by Yah, if he did speak all that Yah commanded him, why didn't the priesthood and the Pharisees hearken to hear those words and obey what the prophet like Moshe, Yeshua, said?
Because Jesus told them, "You're not my father. You're the father. Your father, the father of lies, Satan." He told the Pharisees that.
Was that not a illegit priesthood at that time?
But the Pharisees weren't really in the priesthood, though, right?
No, they weren't.
It was the Sadducees that were the priesthood.
But he was meaning the Pharisees, not the priesthood.
Well, they
Well,
told us no. Because
The priesthood was, in fact, well, in the book of Hebrews, they're called a drunken priesthood by in the Hebrew text of Hebrews. They weren't. I think that their hearts weren't right.
Right.
They might have been doing some of the right things, but it was in the doing the motions.
yeah. They wanted crazy
And-
people and walking around in their clothes. That's what Jesus said. You're like polished white-robed tombs. You're bad in the inside, but good on the polished on the outside. Jesus called them all out.
So, kind of a follow-up then is this: if you claim to be Torah observant, but don't listen to the prophet like Moshe, are you actually Torah observant?
Nope.
No.
No, and the groups you're talking about actually say, well, those have been done away with.
No.
Those what?
The things Moses told you to do.
Oh yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
ceremonial.
Right. And you know that God says he did not do away with the law. He came and fulfilled it.
Fulfilled.
And he hasn't fulfilled it all yet. We got more feasts, but he fulfilled the law. And he tells us that. And so these people that are saying that, they're lying. They don't want to accept the truth. And it's staring them in the face. But then again, God said they'll have a veil by then. Some of them.
And that's the deal, the veils.
The veil. They're not seeing their
They're not intentionally
No, they're not doing it on purpose.
on purpose. That's what they were
I can
taught,
see
that's what they
I
believed.
met a lady in California. It was so amazing when God showed me this. Her name's Judy, and I started praying for her. And then at Costas Market, I was going to the store and told my daughter, and she laughed. I said, we're in the store, and there's a long line, and we're waiting in the grocery store, and I go, hi, and I tell her I'm Christian, I'm learning Hebrew. And she started, and she was speaking a little Hebrew, and then she was, and I said, no, shalom, and she goes, do you know there's a song in Israel? And she started singing, and then she sang it, and I go, oh, I'd like to hear it, and she gave me the name of it, and she started singing shalom. As we were waiting in the line, she sang it, and she said, I want to hear more. She was, I teach, I'm a Hebrew teacher. And she was so, shalom, shalom, and we were laughing because all of the store just turned and looked at her. Because we're in line anyway. And then afterwards, I go, oh, then are you a Christian? Did you follow Yeshua? She goes, no, I'm not. After the shalom and singing, I'm like, and then I go, you're not. And I go, well, you don't believe in Yeshua? She goes, no, he's just a prophet. And my face and my heart sunk. And then I just was like, she goes, but my husband's a Christian. And he just keeps telling about Jesus. And I'm like, and as I walked out the store, and I said, well, God bless you, ma'am. And she goes, I do believe in God. And I go, there's a one, and she goes, one God. I go, yes, Shema, one God. And she goes, and she said, he's just a prophet. And then as I walked away, and her name's Judy, I started going, God, open your eyes. Please open your eyes. Because she goes, my husband, he tells me, oh, I love my husband, but oh man, she said, he's a Christian, he believes like you. Oh my God! So I was like, it was amazing. And I said, that's what you're talking about. So when God said the veil, she's married to a Christian, and the veil's right there. And I'm like, he showed me right there the veil. I said, God, you're showing me the veil right now. I couldn't believe I actually met a Jew that didn't believe. Because I met Messianic Jews, and you're a Messianic Jew, but not everybody's a Messianic Jew. And God said they'll all come we come to Jesus and the battle of Armageddon, all that.
But I didn't come to Yeshua through the Christianity.
Well, no, I don't mean it
I
that
would
way.
have a real problem. I have a problem with it
Yeah,
today.
yeah, there is some things that are really wrong with it. I agree. That's why God taught. That's why God taught.
Christianity has too much paganism.
Yeah, exactly. Easter, yes, that's why God got me out of it. My husband's still Christianity though, in the
But
sense
the
of,
Lord knows how to get through to a Jew through dreams, visions,
yes,
and visitation
yes,
through
sleeping, yes.
difficult times.
Because we have dreams, yes.
So
I believe
I
with
don't
all my
have
heart.
any problem with somebody like her having a problem.
Well, no, I wasn't upset with her. I just was like, God, he was showing me the veil. Because her husband is Christian. But somehow, some way, God's going to work them together. They're married for a reason. They're, God does miraculous things. So I was
God
excited.
has his own way of doing.
Opening our eyes. He opens it. Well, my husband don't believe in Sabbath right now in the sense of going on Saturday. He only believes on Sunday. But I'm not going to fight with him about it because what did God say? We just teach as in we walk in quiet as in Proverbs 31 and he'll learn Sabbath. I mean, we don't know how God does it. He just does it perfect. We don't.
So the text says, I will require it of him. The word there is edrosh, for require it. You recognize edrosh from Midrash, we're doing now, but darash is for the same root word, means to seek or inquire, but it could mean require in a certain context. That's how King James translates it here. Call to account, exact it from him, or other ways. It's different from sha'al, of course, was to ask. Required of him, excuse me, I think it's used in the same sense here as, but only your blood for your lives I require, from the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. So it's like being called to account is, in this sense, is not just asking questions, but it's essentially you will be called to answer for not following the prophet like Moses. So kind of conclude this section. If Yeshua is a prophet like Moses, as Kepha and Stephen said, you'll be called to account if you don't shema Yeshua's words. If you don't shema the prophet like Moses, you're not Torah observant. So if you not believe that Yeshua is the way, truth, and life, and no one comes to the Father except through him, as he said, you don't shema the prophet like Moses. You're not listening to the prophet like Moses.
He's all of that, though. He's the prophet. He's the high priest. He's all of everything that we learned in the Old Testament. It's amazing. He's even the menorah. He's the light of the hill. When you read Revelation, he stands between the menorah. And I was like, there's an eighth in the light of the seven, which is seven of the churches. And I'm like, God, that's the eighth. And then in Gematria, 8 is Jesus. And I'm like, wow, and that's Revelation, chapter 1. He's the light of the world. He's the menorah. He's the all of the Torah. But then if you don't understand the Old Testament and understand Hebrew, you're never going to get all of it. That's why a lot of people don't understand the Old Testament. They're not studying. They just want to go to the New Testament. And that's what they call them the Christians. They just want to know the new and not the old.
Yeah, if you don't understand the Tanakh, you can't really understand the.
Right, 'cause they build on each other.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what a lot of the Christians and the paganism. That is true. 100%. God got us out of the paganism. But
So how to tell a false prophet?
They lie and it'll not come to pass.
Verse 22. So the question is, how do we recognize the word Adonai is not spoken? When a prophet speaks in Adonai's name, the word does not happen or come true. That is a word that Adonai has not spoken. The prophet that spoke it is what? Has spoken presumptuously. Don't be afraid of him.
What's the Hebrew word for presumptuously? Does it mean presumptuously?
Oh, you've got your. I don't have to answer your question because you have an interlinear translation right in front of you. Yeah. So.
You're right. I'm just curious because
It's 1822. Maybe you don't have. Maybe it's not interlinear. I'm not sure in yours.
it might be.
It might be facing page, probably.
He says, the prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, and the oracle does not come true. The prophet has uttered it, and he says presumptuously here too. So let's see what I got. He says who deliberately prophesied, but yeah, but that's the reform, so. Back this one here. So 18.
I think Abigail's looking it up for
Saying
us.
same presumptuously, but I don't see it in Hebrew because it doesn't have a translation
So what about the prophecies that don't come true for hundreds of years later?
Well, see, that's the thing. We're going to talk about that. And this next slide actually asks that question. What about,
You're not going to be around to see if it was true.
right,
Ought to be,
I hope not.
but
or
there's plenty of prophecy that even Moses made that has not yet come to pass.
true.
But there's so many things that have come to pass.
Right.
And I think a key point in terms of modern times, when modern false prophets make a prophecy, it's typically related to timing that I've seen.
Yeah.
In other words, the rapture will occur
Right.
88 times. Reason is going to be in 1988.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting there is my understanding of what I was taught was in the prophecy that how do you know a prophet was a true prophet of God was back in the day, like when they prophesied, there was a near term and a far term. So when the near term happened, you knew his far term prophecy was going to happen as well. That's the way I was taught.
Isn't there a place where God says that not to even be deceived by a prophet that prophesies something and it comes true if he's telling you to serve another God?
Ooh,
That
that's
was last week, right?
That's
If he
good.
tells you to serve.
Yeah, because
That's
there
not
was a
what I'm
prophet
referring
got
to, though.
ate by a lion because of that. Remember? He was mauled by a lion because he was supposed to honor Yahweh and he didn't. And then a prophet came to him. He was a true prophet.
Say
But he didn't obey God, he obeyed man. And
The word used for presumptuously is the word zadon,
very good over there.
insolence or
You
presumptuousness.
gotta be careful. Yeah, right.
Zadon. It's find it here. The root word.
Hebrew
That's
word
the
for
word of
bread.
God, not man.
If you're looking at the
Arrogant. She got arrogant and conceited.
it's in context here. It's bezadon, in presumptuousness. Bezadon,
Yeah.
bet
Yeah, I got that
Zion.
right here.
in presumptuousness, in insolence, in presumptuousness,
Yeah.
with presumption, perhaps.
Yeah.
Arrogant.
I got it right here.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. So, again, what about those? Well, I think that we can look at the prophecies that they made. They had such a track record of not being false prophets that we can presume that they're not false prophets. So when for example, Ezekiel, there's plenty of prophecy in chapter 40 to 48 from his book that have not yet come to pass, that will come to pass, or else he will be called a false prophet.
So you judge on their track record.
Well, if things, I mean, you can't, if their prophecy is something that's in the future, you can't say it didn't happen if they die before it happens, if it's prophecy that is not necessarily time related. In other words, the event hasn't come to pass yet, but they didn't say it would come to pass in their lifetimes, for example.
Like Daniel, shut up the scrolls.
Right. I mean,
He was
the
not-
70 weeks of Daniel
Because
obviously didn't happen in his
no, It's
lifetime.
not gonna happen, Jesus told him, and he didn't, okay, you didn't have to understand this, okay?
Yeah, but if that don't happen in your lifetime, then you can't make the judgment whether that's a false or a real prophet.
Right. What you can say is that based on the track record of the prophecies that he has made that have
There's a
come
new
to
prophet,
pass.
and this is the second prophecy from God. Neither one of them's come true yet. You don't know yet if he's a
Don't
false
know.
prophet.
That's
Or do
good,
you wait?
that's, yeah, how long you make.
Yeah.
We're like, when is it coming up?
It might be your future descendants that comes true. Then they'll know.
Then they'll know, yeah, because you gotta be.
Yeah.
I know
You know,
it's crazy, but I think a better yardstick is relying on actual false prophets. People, human psychology, people that intend to lie
Yes,
can't help but make it bigger and better and more, and they're compulsive at lying.
correct.
If someone's truly at it, the real rarely brags and rarely, is constantly shooting his mouth off.
That's because
You know,
that's what
the-
we're
Yeah,
trying
but
to
can
The
you
solve.
go-
fakes show themselves out really quick. The
Can you
fakes
go
show
by
up
that
pretty
as a
easy.
judgment tool?
No, I'm
when
saying
you're
that,
given this judgment tool?
Yeah.
no,
You go by
what I'm saying is that the empty part here, he makes a prophecy that happens way in the future. I'm just thinking that the assumption being that the false prophet's going to show himself up pretty quickly.
Yes, that
What I'm
makes
saying
I
is
don't know about that. I mean, you gotta make a judgment. That's talking about Israel, or maybe even us individually, making a decision on that prophet. Is he real
Right,
or is he full of crap?
right, right.
You have to go by the
And
word.
you don't know yet.
Yes.
But you have to go by the word.
You may never know in your lifetime.
It seems
If
though,
you're going by that,
But that's not what Wesley's saying. Wesley's saying that if he is a false prophet, usually they come out.
well, he's given another tool by what you can make a decision by, when we're only given one tool,
We have one too.
that tool.
He's not.
Not
giving
that.
no, I'm not giving a tool. I'm explaining.
It's good.
So it says, okay, if he prophesies something that doesn't come to pass, he's false.
You don't know that yet.
No. He says if he prophesies something that doesn't come to pass, and it's false, then he's false because it didn't come to pass. What I was meaning was that the false prophets out themselves pretty early on because they want the fame of prestige in their lifetime.
and the money.
So they make a prophet. The false prophets don't say 1,000 years from now all this stuff's going to happen. So give me some money. It's next year or tomorrow will be something.
In 3 years' time.
They have this mode. In other words,
Do you see much of that in scripture?
He's not talking about scripture. He's talking.
No,
about
You mean false prophets?
When the false prophet makes a prediction and the prediction doesn't come to pass in human psychology,
Then he's
people
only gonna be
lie.
a false prophet once. Because
I'm-
everybody will know it then.
I'm saying that the
But that in practice, that's how it seems it always is. All the date setters have made date setting
And they
predictions.
find people ready to receive it. Yeah,
Yes,
but
and get there
if you
for a
go further
time.
with that, you know he's a false prophet.
Correct. That you'll know.
Well, when the prophecy they predicted doesn't happen.
Come true.
Yeah.
But what typically happens then is that, well, I miscalculated. It's not this year, it's next
I
year.
made a mistake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then you know
He's a
that
false
was
prophet.
that.
That's what Wesley's saying.
That's a good.
Oh, okay, I got you now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I got what you're
It's
saying.
brought to light, because all of a sudden 1995 came and they said, oh, and then boom.
Didn't they say something about 2000 beginning?
Yeah. no,
Plenty of
I-
people
Oh,
thought
there's someone
2000.
saying something.
Y2K.
But 2000 was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What happened
weird.
with Y2K? I'm still here. I mean,
24 years later.
like what? That's
So, like,
false prophet.
Do you remember where you were when Y2K happened?
Yeah, do you remember that? And
Oh,
everybody's like,
Oh, it did happen, but only spiritually.
Yeah, they were lying, or whatever it was.
Well, that is true. That is how a certain group has predicted the return of Messiah in 1914. And they said, oh, it happened spiritually.
When it
Right,
didn't happen physically, then,
Right.
oh, it
Mhm.
did happen spiritually.
right.
Is that Seventh Day Adventist?
That's what
or
the
is
Book
that-
of Mormon
That has to be Mormon, yeah, Mormon.
No,
Mormons do
no,
that,
no,
Sunday
no.
Adventists, yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's all cults.
So switching to Isaiah 53.
It's good, it's good.
No,
I like
this
the
is, I
interaction.
love this because we learn more.
Well, even if we don't learn, we'll get.
We're taking notes.
So Isaiah 53. Now, in traditional Judaism these days, not back in the time when the Talmud was written, it's common to say that Isaiah 53 is not about the Messiah, it's about Israel. But that's not what ancient Jewish documents say. For example, Babylonian Talmud, Messiah, what is his name? The rabbis say, the leper scholar. As it is said, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him a leper, smitten of God and afflicted. So where's that quote from? Isaiah 53, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So according to the Talmud, Isaiah 53 is about the Messiah. What about Targum Jonathan? Targum Jonathan is the Targum of the prophets, and it says, behold, my servant Messiah shall prosper. He shall be high and increased and exceedingly strong. Again, that's a derivative of Isaiah 53. Behold, my servant Messiah shall prosper, and he shall be high and increase and be exceedingly strong. Rambam. What does Rambam say? What does Rambam know about Judaism, man?
Flintstones.
Different guy. That's Bam Bam.
Oh.
What is Mom?
Rabbi Moshe Maimonides.
Oh, that's
Rambam.
I was doing that. I know who's that.
A famous old ancient.
So what does Maimonides know about Judaism? Well, he says, what is the matter of Messiah's advent? There shall rise up one of whom none have known before, and signs and wonders which they shall see and perform by him will be the proofs of his true origin. For the Almighty, where he declares to us his mind upon this matter, says, behold, a man whose name is the branch, and he shall branch forth out of his place. Let's continue reading. And Isaiah speaks similarly of the time when he, Messiah, shall appear. Without father or mother or family being known, he will come as a sucker or a branch before him, as a root out of dry earth. In the words of Isaiah, when describing the manner which the kings will hearken to him, at him kings will shut their mouth for that which has not been told them. They have seen and they have not heard. And they which have not heard have perceived. So again, he's quoting from Isaiah 53 here to show that the Messiah is being spoken of in Isaiah 53. So if you argue that, if someone argues that Isaiah 53 is about Israel and not the Messiah, it goes against the Talmud, against Targum Jonathan, and against Maimonides. So you're probably wrong. Let's put it that way. All right, well, that is the last teaching slide. The next slide, of course, is Dixie playing racquetball.
We're doing hobblove.
Aw.
Real quick hobblove.
Yep, it is. It is after sunset. It's probably dark out there, so we can get started with Havdalah.
All right.
That we end this.